You mustn't settle. You cannot quit.
It's one small step for man.
This moment is yours for the taking.
One giant leap for mankind.
A mountain to conquer, a giant to slay.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
That proverbial line in the sand in the journey of life. God is with you. Step out.
I have a dream today.
He is for you. Step up.
You and I was saved by the cross.
Let nothing hold you back.
Great moments are born from great opportunity.
This is your moment.
Now it's time to see who has the heart.
Declare it,
We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that.
then make it so.
Come on, how you guys doing? Yeah? Oh, I love this church. I love this church. I got to preach for the first time as a real staff person a couple weeks ago, baptism weekend. It's like 150 baptisms. Can we just give it up for what God is doing in this place? It's already been like 4 or more this weekend. It's just God is moving, and I love being a part of that. And man, I tell you what we're talking about today, I think directly impacts that kind of life change and that kind of movement. So what we're talking about today is really, really important. Would you mind if we start with a prayer? Can we do that? Just close your eyes or don't close your eyes, whatever. Bow your head, pray with me. Lord, I pray that this would not just be a normal Sunday, that we wouldn't walk out of here saying, oh, that was a nice service. I pray, God, that you would open up our spiritual ears, open up our spiritual eyes. I pray that you would soften our heart. I pray, God, that not just your word would be implanted in our heart in a way that takes root and bears fruit, but like we would literally grab your heart for people, that we'd be able to understand that we have everything we need in you, and that frees us up to love people the way you love them. God, do that in us today, in Jesus' name, amen. You can imagine how devastating it was for Andrew and Peter when they heard the words, we don't think you have what it takes. Yeah, we're gonna go a different direction. And man, it even makes more sense when you have the context of how intense the Jewish educational system was back in that day. That at 5 years old, they would enter into the Bet Sephor, and they would be expected from age 5 to 13 to memorize the Torah. That's the first 5 books of the Bible, y'all. It's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy memorized. Well, if they were able to get through that by the age of 13, they could move on to secondary school, secondary education, which is the Bet Talmud. And in the Bet Talmud, they would study the Tanakh and be expected not only to memorize the entire Old Testament, basically, but also be able to answer theological questions from their teachers about the law and the prophets. It was a big deal, man. And a lot of kids would drop out. If they did, they'd end up going back to, their family business, and they'd apprentice under their father to be a carpenter or to be a fisherman. They faced what Andrew and Peter faced, which was, hey, we don't think you're good enough. But for the kids that made it through that, man, they would be so excited because they would hear these words from a rabbi. A rabbi would take the best of the best and invite them to follow him and to become a disciple. And that was huge because the rabbis were the rock stars of the day. The rabbis were the movers and shakers. They were the ones that had the best seats at the best tables. I mean, the rabbis were the ones that all the kids looked up to, these religious teachers. It's kind of like the way it is today. Okay, no, I know. But with that context, this episode in Matthew, the book of Matthew, makes a little more sense. As Jesus is walking beside the Sea of Galilee, this up-and-coming rabbi that people are starting to hear about, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew, and they were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Oh, okay, so they went back to their father's job. They went back to fishing, the family business. Come, follow me, Jesus said. The words that rabbis used as an official invitation. Come and follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. And at once they left their nets and followed him. Guys, Jesus looking at these young men that others had said didn't have what it takes, and he said, no, I see in you something different. I see in you that you could have a life of purpose, that you could have a life of loving people, that you could have a life of impact, that you could have a life of fulfillment. You come and follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. I'd always thought this episode was kind of weird because it's like they just met Jesus, and somehow they leave their family business, they leave everything and just immediately follow him. Like, how did that ever happen? And when I was reading it as a kid, I always thought like Jesus must have had some supernatural hypnotic powers, like, come follow me. And everybody's just like, okay. But now it makes a little bit more sense. I just imagine like being out shooting hoops with my sons in the driveway. And as we're shooting hoops, this limo just keeps passing by again and again and again. And then it stops. The door opens up and out comes LeBron James, who looks at my sons and says, I think you have what it takes. Come and follow me to the NBA. Guys, I'm telling you, my boys wouldn't even go kiss their mama goodbye. They would be in that car so fast, you know? And I think that's kind of what's happening here. It just kind of makes more sense. Now, you think memorizing the Tanakh was a big commitment. When a kid signed up and agreed to become a disciple of a rabbi, it meant complete submission. This was not like, oh, I get a mentor. This was not like, oh, we're gonna learn a few items in theology. This was, I'm signing up to submit my complete life to you. Like I'm following in your footsteps. I wanna pattern my life after yours. In fact, there was a saying that arose, a blessing really, may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi. The idea would be that you'd be following your rabbi's pattern, his life, so closely that as he kicked up dust on the road, it would get all over you. May we be covered in the dust of our rabbi. See, for Peter, he wasn't just signing up to believe things about Jesus or learning from Jesus. Jesus made it clear, I am on a mission for people, and I'm inviting you to be on a mission for people as well. It was true for Jesus, or it was true for Peter and Andrew, and it's true for us. Jesus said, we are gonna be about fishing. Following means fishing. Now, when I was growing up, I thought following meant a lot of other things. Like for me, following was basically, following Jesus meant going to church. And there wasn't a Sunday that we didn't get up and I put on my clip-on tie and we showed up. I thought following Jesus meant, you could answer the right questions at Sunday school, or you'd pray at the right time, or you'd sing the songs and you knew the words. I thought following Jesus was, maybe give a little money or sing the songs or whatever it is. When I got older, following Jesus wasn't so much about what you did, it was about what you didn't do. I don't smoke and I don't chew and I don't go with those girls that do. And that's what following Jesus meant. But what Jesus is saying that, no, following me, those things are fine, but if there's not fishing, if there's not a desire to impact the world for Jesus, then we're not really following. Like fishing is the mission. Jesus is saying, that's what I'm about. That's what I'm here to do, is to love a hurting world. Now, can I show you something real quick? If I were to invite you some weekend to go fishing with me. I should say, first of all, that probably never happened. And it's not because I don't love you. It's because I'm not real outdoorsy. I'm what you call indoorsy, all right? I don't like hiking. I'm not a big fan of camping. I mean, roughing it for me is a hotel without the free breakfast in the morning, okay? And I mean, pray for Rachel, but she comes from a family of real men. And, you know, her father was a carpenter like Jesus. And her brothers are hikers and campers and all this kind of stuff. In fact, I'll say this. One time I was staying at their house and we headed to bed, and her mom said, hey, if you get thirsty or anything, feel free to hit the fridge or whatever. And I did. At night, I woke up and I was thirsty. I go in and I opened the wrong side of the refrigerator. It was in the freezer, and there were, in a Ziploc bag, frozen chicken heads. I'm like, what kind of voodoo family am I marrying into here? Like, what is this? But here's the deal. The chicken heads were to feed the hawk. My father-in-law was a falconer, right? I mean, he taught a bird how to hunt with him, okay? This is the level, and I just don't, here's the deal. So my point is this. I don't know a lot about fishing or outdoors kinds of stuff, but I know this. If we said, hey, we're gonna go fishing, this is the first thing we think of. You're gonna grab a pole, and as long as your work was done and all the other real priorities of your life were done, you had a little spare time and you wanted to have some fun, and maybe it was a hobby, you and I would go out and we'd throw a line in the water. We might catch one or two fish, and we'd feel great about it. But I'm here to tell you that when Jesus rolled up to these guys and said, hey, I'll make you fishers of men, this is not what they envisioned. Because this is the kind of fishing you do when it's not a priority, when it's just a hobby, when it's just for fun. But if fishing is the mission, then you fish with this. See, for these guys, they were professional fishermen. This is what they envisioned. When you fish like this, when your life depends on it, when feeding your family depends on it, when it becomes the highest priority, and you would grab your friends and everybody would get involved, and you'd throw this net out into the water and you would try to grab as many fish as you could because everything depended on it. It's what you were about, man. It was the highest priority. And here's why I share all of that with you, because my concern is that there are too many churches who settle for this kind of fishing. I think there are too many churches who imagine that fishing is something you do when all the other priorities are taken care of. Fishing is something that you do when maybe once on a weekend, if you have time. But I think what Jesus is inviting those early disciples to, and us as well, is this kind of fishing. A fishing of the highest priority. A fishing where all of us get involved. Fishing where not one guy just gets up on a weekend and casts a little line out there, but when all of us head out on a Sunday and say, man, throughout the entire week, we become a net where we live and work and play. We become a net of fishing, and that is the vision. Now, why don't we do it as often as we do? Why are so many churches content for this and not this? I think it's because we sometimes drum up images of evangelism. Oh, I said it. We drum up images of evangelism, that dirty word that none of us really like to hear about, because it honestly creates tension in us as we imagine the guy at work that you can't quite tell if he's talking politics or he's talking Jesus. Because he's kind of mixing it up. Like I thought we were talking about the lamb and you're talking about donkeys and elephants. Like that just doesn't, it feels like an awkward interaction. Or we have this idea of evangelism, like you're supposed to grab a bullhorn and head down to the city with a big placard and be like, here are all my verses on Revelation, judgment, judgment, judgment. And we're like, I don't want to be about that. Or we think Evangelism is I've got to open up my Bible and I have to know every theological debate. I've got to be able to win this thing. When we get into an argument, when people have questions, I got to be able to answer every question. I have to understand the ontological relationship between the second and third person of the Trinity and its eschatological impact on Revelation 4 through 6. Guys, I'll tell you this. As much as evangelism freaks you out, it freaks the people in the world out. Like we all agree on that. If that's what evangelism is. Like we have that in common with them. Hey, if that's your understanding of what Jesus was calling those guys to and what Jesus is calling us to, well, then I don't blame us for not wanting to do it. Man, if that's your understanding, I feel like I've got such good news for you. I feel like I can share something with you today where you go, wow, that makes it more accessible. That makes it something that I want to do. Because here's the deal. When you think about the way Jesus impacted the world, wasn't Jesus attractive to people? Like Jesus wasn't off-putting to people. People were always trying to hang out with Jesus. Everywhere he went, there were crowds. Everywhere he went, people were like, teach us, tell us, talk to us more, interact with us. He was like the light in the world. And in Matthew, we're supposed to be the light of the world. Not off-putting, not awkward interactions. We ought to be as attractive as Jesus. And so I found with some Christians in Australia a few years ago, they put out this little acronym. And this acronym, it's BLESS, and I'm gonna share it with you today. But what I love about it, it is based on the practices and lifestyle of Jesus. May we be covered in the dust of our rabbi. The B in bless is begin with prayer. Begin with prayer. Now, real quick, I just want to share this with you. If you're here today and you're like, dude, I'm not even a Christian. This is weird, okay? I want to share with you what we're about to talk about is how Jesus impacted and influenced people. And so for you, you can grab something out of this too, because for you, if you're somebody that says, well, I'm a teacher, well, you can learn how to influence and impact students. If you're a salesperson, you might learn how to influence and impact and make the sale. If you're somebody that's leading a team at work, how do you influence and impact people? So I hope this is something for everybody, but for us, it's this context of evangelism. Jesus prayed all the time. Begin with prayer. He prayed before the feeding of the 5,000. He prayed up on the mountainside overnight. He prayed before choosing the 12 apostles. He was always, always praying. And so if we are to follow in the steps of our rabbi, we ought to be a praying people as well. Dear God, show me who I can bless. Show me who it is in my life that maybe you're already working on. Or maybe somebody that has a need. You know, one of the things I do is I have these words, 3 words that begin with the letter N. And for me, I pray these things, and God tends to show people that are, the first N, that are new. They're new to the office, or they're new in the neighborhood, or they're new in church. And typically, those people that are new are kind of open to conversations. They're kind of open to connect with people. God, who is new? Or I might pray to God, God, who is somebody that's in need? Because people that are in need, they're maybe lonely, or they need a friend, they are food insecure, or they're confused about. There's somebody that might engage in a conversation. Or the last N that I'll pray through is this idea of people that are not sure. They need direction, they need wisdom. They're stuck in some area of their life and they need answers. And so sometimes God will show us those people and we'll be able to say, hey, let's connect, let's talk. And that becomes somebody that we're able to bless. Basically, I'm praying, God, can you give me what I've heard other people call divine appointments? I kind of like that. Divine appointments. a few years ago, I was in a small group, and we were going around, and the assignment was talk about, somebody that you can invite to Easter services at church. And everybody was going around. I'm the pastor, I'm leading the group, and everybody's going around talking about they're gonna invite this person, they're gonna invite that person. I wasn't really thinking, but when it came to me, I had this weird realization. Like, I didn't know who to invite. Because I'd been in church so long, I'd just been surrounded by a bunch of Christian people, and it's like I didn't really know anybody. And so I just told him, I said, I don't know who to invite. And this young guy kind of perks up and he goes, well, what are you gonna do about it? And I was like, hey, I'm the pastor here, okay? But he was right. And so I said, well, I don't really know. I'll pray about it. And here I am praying for a divine appointment. Well, I prayed and prayed and prayed. And then we had this event, which is a water giveaway at a park. Our church went out and given away some water. And, throughout that day, I'm like, God, show me somebody to talk to. Show me somebody to pray. And I'll just be real honest. Like, I was waiting for like a dove to come down and like lay on somebody's shoulder, or like the heavens to part and this light be like that one right there or something. But I went throughout the whole day, and sure enough, like there was just never a natural moment for me to be like, here's a bottle of water. You want to sit down and open up the Bible together? Like that just would have felt so awkward. So I didn't do anything. I just prayed, got through that day. About a month later, our church was doing a car wash. We were out in the world doing a car wash. And there was this guy, we washed his car, and I walk up and I give him a little invite card to our church. And he takes it, oh, thank you very much. And he looks at it and he goes, oh, this church, I was actually out at the park. Guys, there's hundreds of thousands of people in this city. I was out at the park and somebody gave me a bottle of water. He looks up and he goes, it was you. You were the guy. I was like, right? I looked at him and I said, I think God's trying to tell you something. I did. And we just both kind of laughed in that moment. And he's like, okay. And then he took off. And so, that was kind of cool. But a month later, and I kid you not, the church was having a Halloween event. And here come in the front door these cute little kids dressed up like Dalmatians. Aww. And then their dad came in dressed like a fireman. And it was that dude. And so I'm like, okay, Lord, I got it. And so I walked up to him and I said, fireman, huh? That's pretty cool. Let me tell you how to avoid the fires of hell. No, I didn't do that. Don't do that, okay? Don't do that. That is the first rule, by the way, in evangelism, is don't be weird about it. If you're gonna do something like that, you tell them about the Baptist church down the road. Don't you tell them about East Side. I honestly said, thanks for being here. I said, we gave them a tour, and sure enough, they started coming to the church and started taking their next steps with God. I said all that to say is that throughout that entire time, I've just been praying, Lord, give me a divine appointment. Show me people that I can bless. Let's begin with prayer. The L in bless is listen. In Luke 18, Jesus hears the sound of a blind beggar who's saying, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. He stops, he crouches down, and he says to the man, what do you want me to do for you? And then he listens. And far too often in this world, we're trying to be understood rather than trying to understand people. We're trying to be heard rather than hear people. Have you ever had that experience where you're in a conversation, and at some point in the conversation, like raise your hand if this has ever happened to you. Has it ever happened to you, like when you're in a conversation and you kind of have this realization, I don't think this person is really hearing a thing I have to say. Can you raise your hand if that happened? Yeah, a lot of wives raising their hands right now. I don't understand that at all. We're gonna pray for you. But here's the thing, listening to somebody is a way to show love and concern and respect. To literally like sit and listen. And if we'll listen, then we'll be able to meet someone's actual need, not just what we think they might need. There was a missionary team that went to India. They went to a small little village in India, and they came with builders and resources and lumber and nails, and they said, hey, here we are. Would you like us to build you a school? Would you like us to build you a church? Would you like us to build you a clinic? And the leader of that tribe said, we'd like you to build us a mailbox. And the missionary is like, did you see all this that we can do for you? He says, we would like you to build us a mailbox. So the missionary leans in and just starts asking questions and listening. And sure enough, the reason they wanted a mailbox is because without a mailbox, you don't have a zip code. Without a zip code, you were an unincorporated little village, and you never got any of the resources from the government. But if you could get a mailbox and if you could get a zip code, then you could get the medicine, and you could get the educational resources, and you could get the clean water resources from the Indian government. And so that's what the missionary did. They lobbied and they got them a mailbox, and they took a lot of their lumber home, and they took care of what that person needed. If we want to listen, if we want to meet the real needs of people, we need to listen. You see, the gospel is supposed to sound like good news. That's what gospel means, is good news. And so maybe ask ourselves, what would good news sound like to someone who's hurting? Probably that they need healing. What's good news sound like to someone who's lonely? Well, they need a friend. To someone who's tired, they need rest or they need help. Someone who's stuck, they need some encouragement and some hope. And if we aren't listening, we won't know how to love people. Begin with prayer. Listen. Are you with me that these seem to be like things that you could actually do in your world? Like, this is stuff that Jesus did. It doesn't have to be awkward or weird. Now, here's this next one. Begin with prayer, listen. Here's the next one. Eat. My favorite. You eat with people. You say, well, that's not spiritual. Oh, yeah, it is. Where did Jesus do his first miracle? At a wedding feast. What did Jesus do with the 5,000? He fed them. When Jesus came back from the dead and he needed to restore Peter, what did he do? Have breakfast with him on the beach? What did he do when he wanted to influence Zacchaeus? He said, I want to go to your house and have dinner. There was something about the meal. What do we call it? The Last Supper? There's something about sharing the table with people that is sacred. It takes a relationship to another level. And you know what I'm talking about. But when that special someone said, hey, can we get together for coffee? You were like, okay, but I don't really know if they like me or not. But when they said, what if we had dinner? You're like, I'm in. This is great. We're having dinner. It just takes a relationship to the next level. And so I would encourage you, if there's people in your life that God is showing you to have a relationship with, this is one of the ways to do it. Eat with them. Because when you eat with somebody, it takes any of the doubt about, like, am I a project? Do they really care about me? It's like, when I eat with somebody, I want to have real connection with them, an unrushed time to connect. Begin with prayer. Listen. Eat. And then serve. In John 13, on Jesus' last night before he died, he got up from the table and he wrapped a towel around his waist and he got a basin of water and he stooped down, and the King of the universe washed his disciples' feet. And then he said, I want you to do the same. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. And he asks us to do the same. When you care enough about when you serve somebody, you show them that you care rather than just tell them. When you care for somebody, you show them what Jesus is like before you ever have to tell them what Jesus is like. It's one of the things I love about our local and global compassion efforts. You're out there showing people, serving people. And I'm telling you what, when you start living a life where you're praying regularly, God, show me somebody in the world that I can impact and influence. God, help me to listen when I'm in conversation with people to really understand where they're coming from and what their story is. And Lord, help me to eat with people in a way that establishes real connection because I care about them as a person. And then I'm serving with them. Here's what happens. You're living what I would call a questionable life. You say, what do you mean a questionable life? I mean a life that causes people to go, why are you doing this? A life where people go, what is your motivation? Like, why? It doesn't seem like there's anything in it for you. Like, you're helping me at work, and it doesn't seem to impact your bonus. It doesn't seem to, help you climb the corporate ladder. You're just like genuinely trying to listen to me and help me and serve me. Like, I don't understand. Why are you like this? And that's the moment to be like, share your story. That's the moment where we get to say, hey, you know what? Here's the deal, man. Jesus has changed my life and he can change yours. In John 9, there was a blind man, and Jesus heals this blind man. And then the religious leaders are coming, and they come with all their theology. How did this happen? Who did this? Why did this happen? Why did this happen on Sabbath? Like all these kinds of questions. And they're asking this guy, and he's like, I don't know. And he just says this. Here's what I know. I was blind. Now I see. I was blind, now I see. Like, I was blind before Jesus, and then when Jesus came along, he changed me, and now I see. And in that one little sentence is an entire sermon of the way Jesus can change a life. And here's the deal. If you're walking with Jesus and you're paying attention, you have a life change story as well. You have your own version of I was blind, but now I see. It might be I was anxious, but now I can lay my head on the pillow at night in peace. Or I was lost, but now I got found. Or my marriage was on the rocks, but now we feel like we have hope and we're trending. I had a kid that was wayward and making all kinds of unhealthy decisions, but now because of Jesus, like they seem to be on the straight and narrow and things are going well in our family. Like my business was going this way and it wasn't going well. And then I started kind of operating under the way Jesus wants us to have integrity and serve people. And like I'm operating my business according to the way Jesus would have us operate my business. And now I'm watching it flourish. I had no purpose. I had all kinds of success. I had money in the bank, things, but I had an empty feeling. And then I started following Jesus and serving people and realizing that my life could be impactful to others. And now I just have such a fulfilling life. I was an addict, man. I could not stop. I felt just locked up all the time. I just kept coming back to it. And even though it, kept taking away my self-esteem, kept taking away my relationships, taking away my money, it just robbed me of so much. I kept coming back to it until Jesus. And he set me free. Every one of us has a story. And the people that are out in this world that are hurting, that are confused, that are new, that are lonely, they want to hear that story. They want to hear how Jesus can make a difference in their life. And so I encourage you to follow in the steps of your rabbi. Begin with prayer and listen, eat with people, serve them, and just tell them the difference that Jesus made in your life. I did something this week that I have never done before. I recorded on video for the At the Movies series in this church. Oh, I've never done it before. Gene and I, we got behind the camera and we were having so much fun talking about it. And if you're new, what we do is we take movies that everybody's seen and we let them be the jumping off point for how we talk about scripture and Jesus. And it's what a cool idea and what an incredible opportunity to bring friends to church, right? And so what I thought we'd do as we end this message is kind of have September 12th and 13th in mind. That's when we start the At the Movies series, September 12th and 13th. And I want to challenge you with a little bit of homework that from now until then, you would just take that little acronym that I gave you and maybe pick one or two and think about how you might bless people. In fact, I'm gonna give us a little bit of an assignment. I'm gonna say, what if we prayed for one person? Like prayed for that one person that God would show us, or maybe one family. It's kind of the unofficial motto of the church. I'm picking up on this. This is for everyone. What a cool motto. So what if we thought about who is that one in everyone? And I want to encourage you, maybe even before the day is over, to set an alarm on your watch or on your phone to pray each day for your one at 1 o'clock. Now, I'm going to pick 1 o'clock p.m. There might be extra credit if you go 1 o'clock a.m. I don't know. You overachievers, you go for it if you want to. But I would just love for each and every one of us, I would love to imagine that at 1 o'clock throughout the next few weeks and throughout Southern California and Vegas and in Park Rapids, that there would be all these people in cubicles and driving trucks and sitting behind the desk at the convenience store or sitting at school or whatever it is, and then 1 o'clock would hit and thousands upon thousands of alarms would go off and all these East Siders would stop, drop, and pray right there. Just a little bit. Pray for people. Isn't that good? All right. I'll tell you what, we have in this series kind of made a declaration each Sunday, and this Sunday is no different. We have a declaration here. It says, I declare, with God's help and the power of the Holy Spirit, I am enough to follow Jesus in his mission to bless people and to help them take their next steps with God. I tell you what, if you wouldn't mind, would you stand and read this with me, and let's declare it together as a church. Ready? Here we go. I declare, with God's help and the power of the Holy Spirit, I am enough to follow Jesus in his mission to bless people and help them take their next step with God. Amen.